Okay, let's go.
Alright, welcome back. Billy, Gym City Welding. Thanks for tuning in today. So, by that little bit of intro, you see what I'm working with. I've got an absolute mess, but I've got a brand new floor pan. So, it's finally time to get on the floor, get that button up, try and get it finished, and move on. I don't know if this will take one video, 2, or 10, but we're getting it done. We're starting it right now. So, what you guys see right here in front of me is the remnants of the old floor. Lots of things to talk about with that. So if you are doing your own floor panel replacement at home, you have a Super Sport or you have just a coupe or a 4-door, there's things you should know, things you should think about before you go cutting up the floor. All right, folks, so here we go. So like I was saying, these are the remnants of the old floor. So my car is a Super Sport, and my car has factory center console in the Super Sport. Let's see. So at some point in its life, it looks like it possibly could have had a 4-speed in there. I don't really know. I don't think the factory would do that, but nevertheless, being that it's a Super Sport, it's got special brackets for the floor. So that's some of the things that you should consider. If you're doing a car at home and your car is a Super Sport, and you're going to do panel removal, you need to make sure you keep those brackets that go with your floor. Now, if you've been watching the build series for a while and you saw the original time video when I cut these out, those of you will remember I talked briefly about saving brackets like those, saving brackets like those right there, bucket seat brackets, all sorts of different brackets. Now, the beauty of what I did is I tried to leave the bracket intact to the piece of floor. That way I had a reference point to mock it up on the new, sorry, my camera's having a fit here, new replacement floor. So some things like some replacement sheet metal like this isn't exactly 100% OE. So yeah, while it has the ridges like here and these, some of the floor pans have a different style of drain hole in the floor pan. So keep that in mind when working on your car. But the idea is that I should be able to take what's left of this original floor, lay that on top of here, and have a way to transfer all the brackets over. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. I still have some cleanup to do on these, like some of the factory sealant that goes around the brackets. I need to be able to get rid of some of that stuff and maybe throw a wire wheel on these things. Some of these brackets I might not be able to save. Like that one's kind of hokey, but it's simple enough, pretty simple sheet metal to replace it with. I just got to do some final cleanup on some of the stuff. These little guys right here are front toe board support. I don't know what you want to call them, but they're basically supports. They run from the front of the cowl underneath the car, and man, those little buggers are $100 to buy them brand new. So if I can save those, I'm going to try and save them. But if they're too far gone, then, well, charge it to the game because I'm going to have them. I kept everything from the floor. That's another thing to talk about that's really important. Don't throw anything away yet until you can be sure without a doubt that you're not going to need it for your project. So everything that I cut out of my original floor that had a bracket, I saved the best I could. And even some of the stuff that didn't have brackets, I basically just hung on to those for the drain plug covers, I guess you could say. But I've since found out after talking to my friends at Restoration World in Heber Heights that I can actually get those brand new. So I'm not going to fool with those. So let's set you up on a time lapse. Let's get some cleanup done, and then we're going to take this floor and we're going to put it on some sawhorses and do some layout and show you how that's going to work. So here we go. Okay, so the best way I can explain this is a perfect job for the air compressor that I have that you guys seen on one of the most recent videos. And basically what I do is I've got a very cheap generic Central Pneumatic Harbor Freight air hammer. And what I've done is I've taken the chisel and I've kind of put a blunt end on it. Well, I wouldn't say blunt end, just kind of a, I don't know, I've tapered it down, basically is what I'm trying to say. And if you take something like this and turn the air pressure down, you should be able to pop off the remnants of whatever you want to call that stuff, the undercoating or whatever sealant that is. But most important out of this whole thing, get you some safety glasses if you're going to do this at home. You only get one set of eyes, so protect those, put some ear protection in, and go to work. So. Okay, let me bring you in and show you what I'm talking about. So that made pretty quick work of all the, whatever you want to call that stuff, undercoating, I guess. But a couple things to note, not a whole lot of attention to detail from the factory, but hey, you know, it's something you never see. And I'm sure just like back then, just like now, they make these things pretty quick. So I've got all those other ones to do. I'm going to do those off camera. When I get those finished up, I'll bring you back and I'll talk to you about how we're going to find where our centers are for these and how to locate them on the new body panel. So stick with me. Be back in a minute. Okay, guys, sorry. I had to do a voiceover because somebody was running equipment outside. But the big point here is you see that hump? That's what I'm pointing to, and the hump that comes on the factory floor pan. The most important thing is making sure that that reference point lines up somewhat, you know, as close as you can get it, because let's be honest, the original floor pan and the replacement are not going to be an exact match. But definitely have a reference point. Once you find that reference point, everything else should be, you know, pretty much falling into place. Go ahead and square up the rear and take one of your clamps if you have one and go ahead and clamp that down. Pretty straightforward. Everything should be in line. Now we're going to mark, since I have a Super Sport, I have a console shift. So I'm marking out for the shifter itself. If you don't have that, of course, you can always skip that portion of the pan replacement. Just note, though, that if you have multiple holes drilled right there from different shifters, say an aftermarket shifter or whatever, you know, your car came with, and you want to keep it factory appearing, then you need to find a stock shifter to make sure those bolt holes line up perfectly. So pretty straightforward. And then here you're going to see I've got a marker, and I'm pre-marking the brackets before I drill anything at all. So I want to make sure that I have good reference marks for after I drill those holes, and that everything should fall into place. And then I also take and put arrows on the top of each bracket pointing towards what the front of the vehicle would be. That way I can line them up perfectly. Now I'm switching over to an 1/8 inch pilot bit. So I'm drilling pilot holes in each bracket. And that's going to give me a good reference point with a marker when I go to put them on the floor pan. And then you'll see me here in just a moment. I'll switch over to a 1/4 inch. And I'm opening those holes up to a 1/4 inch total. That way I'll get a nice weld bead, rosette fillet weld, or plug weld if you will. Okay, so now that you've seen the time lapse, basically all we have to do is sit this thing back down. We need to make sure the hump falls in line right where it should. Clamp the rear of it just like we did before. It looks like our floor shift brackets bolt holes line up really good. And let's be honest, don't get yourself in a rut where you're overthinking this whole thing. These cars were assembled really fast on the assembly line, so if you're off, you know, a 16th or an 8th here or whatever, as long as the console can get over the sides of the brackets, you're going to be okay, I promise you. So now that we got our holes drilled, it's just as simple as transferring those holes now to the steel, and that's it. From there, we'll be able to take our air hammer, knock these brackets off. Notice I put the arrows on there so they're all going towards the front of the car, and we'll be able to spot weld them on. So again, nice and tight, everything looks good right here on this portion of the hump of the floor pan. Just transfer our marks. So now we know exactly where these guys go. So that's the rear. Then I'm going to come up to the front. So when I go to push down on this, it's going to cause that to bow a little bit. But we've already marked up to here, so we're good. So now I just need to apply a little bit of pressure. And that's it. Yeah, that's it. So now on to the next step, which is popping all these brackets off, and then we can put those in place and tack them on. Okay, so after a little bit of work with those brackets, I finally got them where they need to go here in the center. And as you can see, my holes still line up perfect all the way down. And then now I've actually started to mock up the other brackets, but I kind of want to show you for illustrative reasons. You know, when you go to cut these things out of the car, if you can, leave some kind of identifying sheet metal around them to help with the lineup. Like you can see this brake and this brake, they're not perfect, but they go together well enough that it makes lineup a lot more easier. Again, here we go, another, you know, roll on this. So that fits pretty good. This one was a little bit more difficult because it actually was rusted away from the existing sheet metal before I took it out of the, before I took it off the body originally. But you get the idea how these fit. And remember, your stamping may not be, you know, perfect to the original car because, let's be honest, truth tree here, most of these panels come from overseas. This one happens to be, I think, a Dynacorn. So, you know, some are made in the US, most are made overseas. So just keep that in mind. You know, they don't have the original dies left from 61 to 64 for this particular setup. This is an all new, you know, pressing. But it's close. It's enough to get you in the ballpark. As you can see, that gives me a pretty good idea where it needs to go. Same with these guys over here. This one actually had a little bit more sheet metal, which made it, you know, a little bit better to line up on some of these areas. But it's relatively easy, guys. It's as long as these studs and those studs are in plane with one another in line, then you shouldn't have any issues with your bench seat or your bucket seat, depending on what car you have. That one, I should have left a little bit more, but it basically fell into place. I've taken measurements from this edge to the bracket, done the same over there, and it, for the most part, it fits perfect. Now, one thing I do want to mention, you know, a lot of these cars didn't come with seat belts. Some people ordered them with seat belts and some people didn't. I plan on putting seat belts in this car. I have kids, and someday I'm sure I'm going to have grandkids. So, and not only, you know, for myself as well, but if you have the seat belt retainer piece on the back, try to save that, because if you want to put seat belts back in the car, like an example is this is the passenger side. I don't know if they offer that piece for the restoration. They might not. I don't know. But if your car has these, try to save those. You know, you could always use like a just a nut and a washer, to be honest with you, right there. But in a bolt as well. But I'm, you know, if I can save it, I'm going to try and save it. Yeah, it's a small little detail that only I'm going to know about, but hey, that's okay. It's part of the originality, and I like to retain as much of it as I can. I know that sounds kind of silly because we're putting a whole new floor in the car, but I don't know. That's just how my brain's wired. So you get the idea. So I've got a lot of work ahead of me with these, and I'm not going to bore you guys to death with that footage. Basically, I'm going to work on those, get those pretty much to the point of these before I weld anything on. And then I'll bring you back and we'll talk about what we need to do to the outside of this floor pan before we do any welding into the car. So hang tight for that. Okay, so after about 2 hours worth of work from the last montage you just seen, I finally got to a stopping point. Here I am for the night. It's getting late, it's getting dark, but you can see I was able to save these. I think this one's a little bit more boogered up, but I think I can make it work. So we got all the brackets in place, got all the extra sheet metal trimmed off, and so next is going to be to, I've got a good friend of mine that can do some sandblasting for me, so I'm gonna try and get these blasted, and then I could probably shoot some zinc weld on them and get them ready to tack on. So yeah, we're almost there. Let me show you the aftermath of this side. Yeah, tools, just an absolute mess on the floor. But hey, you know what? That's part of it, and it makes me happy to be out here doing that stuff. And so what if it's a mess? I'll get her cleaned up. But yeah, here's another look at it. So you get the idea, guys. This is on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna say probably a 5. It's just very time consuming, not so much labor, just time. And yeah, I got pretty lucky because if I would have had to have bought this bucket seat brackets, that's like $125. And like I told you earlier, those front pieces are $100 for the set. And I'm not sure if you can actually even buy the rest of these brackets. So I got very lucky, and that's all that's left of the original floor. That goes in the replacement piece that I've already put in. I just got to get those little corner brackets off there, but it's pretty straightforward, guys. Pretty simple. So yeah, so that's video 2. For the first time in a while. So I hope you like this video. I hope there's some info here that you can use. Please hit that subscribe button. Helps me out, helps out the algorithm, so people just like you can find me and find this channel and figure out how to do this stuff. So until next time, take care, God bless, and I will see you on a future episode of Gem City Welding. Step through there if you can. Keep going. Nice, good job. Okay, let's take it over. Actually, I forgot to set it right here. I forgot to move those pieces. Oh, don't drop it. Okay, are you ready? Yep. Okay, here we go. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, buddy. Just set the gloves in there, okay? Thank you. I forgot one piece. This is for the gas pedal. Basically the pedal snaps on here, and then up top is where it would, work on your accelerator. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get these apart. They are rusted solid. So chances are I'm probably gonna replace this whole thing, but just so you know, I forgot this one portion, but I'm gonna save this as a template to mock up the next ones. See ya.